After some time since the first publication of Grattini, we are meeting because it's had a big success, especially domestically. At what point is the book right now?
Well, there has been quite a development because I was not expecting it. And in January 2008, the book came out, and it started very slow. And it had problems to be represented also in the bookstores in Italy, because it was a small book, unknown. And then suddenly, little by little, I saw a process, of acceleration that I was not used to, because it was the first book that I ever wrote. So suddenly it started to be sold, to be read, and many things happened. I was called by the TV. I went to a couple of talk shows. There was a blog opened by an important daily paper in Italy, Corriere della Sera, and so on. So I understood that the book had some contents that possibly they were interesting for the people, and I decided to proceed myself to a translation in English. I printed just 100 booklets, as to have a card to be presented to the editor, to the possible editors, and to discuss it abroad. I thought that Italy was not the only place where this book should stay. The message is international. It's kind of message that is interesting for any people. So I started to show the translation, and little by little there was an interest rising up. And finally, in London in July 2009, it was presented to the press, because Athena Press went to publish it and distribute it, and it was brought contemporarily in America and on Amazon, UK and US. Sold in India, because Athena Press has a connection with an Indian editor. And so it was really amazing how the start was, even on internet. The multiplication of the citations here and there. And so this was very, very interesting. And then suddenly, the fact that it was printed in English brought it to attention of people speaking English, of course, and not Italian, but belonging to other countries, like, for instance, Spain, like, for instance, France.
So the book has had a significant success. What do you attribute being the reason for this big success?
Well, it's hard to say, but seemingly, when I started because I wanted to say something that had been happening in my life, and I wanted not only to write a quaderno, but to write a book. That is a big difference, because when you write a book, you face the crowd, you face the people, and their judgment. So from then on, it happened what I was not expecting. So actually, it's true that we have to go through this. We have to go through the understanding of this. And this came out partly by the phrases said in the blogs, or the consideration of friends, or the SMS that I received, text messages, people talking to me about the book and the content of the book. And I can say surely one thing. The book is a need. In the book, there is the need for something, unconscious need, of something that little by little in the Western culture has been vanishing. So the possibility between a man and a woman to talk not with words, but with hands, literally, physically, but not physically sexually, physically by a gesture that is the representation of affection, of certain kind of bien-être, these things, and even more deep, something that belongs to the recalling of something that has happened in our youth, because perhaps for many, the parents were doing this gesture to the children, and this has become part of their unconscious asset that then disappeared because nobody was recalling it in the life of the individual. So coming up with this, many people have in some way understood that the major problems derived by stress or in other cases of a health situation that is unbalanced, or even by sexuality, can be corrected with a certain attitude between men and women. And women, basically the book is dedicated to women, is in the opening of the book, to all women. Of course, men have read it, but basically women has read it. And they, in my opinion, realized what I always thought, that they have much more power than they express it, than they use it. They, in the recent decades, the women, they have searched another way to express themselves, to evaluate, to liberate, and so on. But there is something that is not necessarily bringing back the woman to a different stage of her development, of her, let's say, understanding, but is giving her, again, a role, a dominant role, as she has already, but also in the affection sphere that she has lost sometimes. So this is the point. And if this point is captured by the lecturer, the reader, actually this is the point. If unconsciously reading the book, one understands that the book is about this, then the story goes on. And this can be interesting for anybody. That's why international. Because people would be Belgian or Australian or Chinese or Japanese, is the same, exactly the same problem.
So still on an international level, where do you go from here? What is the next market that you want to penetrate with the book?
Well, the book is already been translated in Japanese. And now at the stage of this interview, I cannot confirm that the book is going out, but 90% will be presented in Tokyo in October. The book is under discussion as to be translated in Arab by a Tunisian group. The book is part of discussions as to transform it in a script for a movie, and the book is under discussion as to be transcribed in a script for a play, theater play. So that's the situation up to now. Plus some discussions, but less, let's say, for the moment are just discussions about other languages. I mean, it's spreading out. I mean, Russians, Portuguese.
All right, so what's the future for you, for Vittorio Mosca as a writer? Are you going to write another book?
No, not for the moment. I am too excited about this project. I mean, I think you know, I read somewhere that a writer, and I was not a writer, and I consider myself also a very strange writer. I mean, I'm not a usual writer. I mean, I've been loaned by the industry, so I mean, a long way back. But I read somewhere the news that a writer can become famous only with one book and never write again. And there are many examples in the history. So, of course, I don't consider my book to be an important book in itself, but is so marking the line of a certain area of discussions. And so that's quite interesting. So perhaps in the winter I could write Grattini 2. And this would be, again, on the same subject, just to say that I'm not so fantasist now to go on other subjects. I'm not a novelist. I'm not a novelist. I became a psychologist, something like that, because Grattini is a kind of psychological game. I mean, you know.